The Remembering Them podcast is a platform for people to share stories and memories of their loved ones who have passed away. The podcast was created in memory of Dad, Bob Cecil. May he rest in peace. Your hosts, Mark Cecil and Ryan Thwaites, acknowledge the rich history and importance of storytelling within Indigenous culture.
My name is Jorgi Skeen, and I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land in which we meet here today. Today we're meeting in Meanjin, and those traditional owners are the Yagara and Turrbal people. And I'd also like to pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, and acknowledge my people, the Gubbi Gubbi people, and extend that acknowledgement to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people listening in today.
Hello, Ryan. Welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks, Mark. Just not seeing Luke around, that's all.
No, just you today. And
wow. Not coming.
No, he's not here today, and it's a free hit, as people know. When the other host is away, you get to free range around the reason he's not here.
Well, I actually know why he's away. He's going to South America. He's a big salsa guy. He's loves salsa dancing, and he's training. He's training. That's his way of picking up girls as well. I've always said this is pretty lame, but
you wouldn't know it if you saw him on the dance floor at a wedding or just out and about.
That's his strategy. That's what he does. He's just laying low. Doesn't want anyone.
Looks uncoordinated.
Yeah.
Generally, and then on the salsa dance floor, that's where he.
He's into it.
Some shapes.
He's into it. He's a bit shit, and that's why he's over there. He's training.
Right, I understand now. So you learn, you go over to learn from the
poor
best.
guy. He likes it. He's just not very good at it. That's all.
Okay. Yeah. Well, enjoy your salsa dancing, Luke, over in South America. I'm glad you know the real reason why.
Yeah, I do.
I'm looking forward to him listening to this back. Right, 3 clues for you today to guess where our guest is from. We're after a city.
Okay.
Clue number 1. In 1878, play along at home for our listeners, as always, see if you can guess before Ryan. In 1878, a large bank became the first woman-owned bank in this country.
Bendigo,
Australia?
Yeah.
Okay, not Bendigo, Australia.
Bendigo Bank.
Regional Victoria, but I guess I can see how you got there. Clue number 2. This city is home to the world's largest indoor funhouse. It's not only a historic train station, but also houses the world's largest indoor funhouse.
Oof. Oh my God. Indoor funhouse. Oh, sounds fun. Let's go to America then. I
doubt Bendigo. I mean, we know that was wrong. Regional Victoria for international listeners.
Or Australia. We don't have fun houses like this.
That's true. No fun.
It's something random like Atlanta, Georgia.
Not Atlanta.
Okay.
Third and final clue for you. This is playing into your wheelhouse, and I don't know if you know this fact, but let's see how we go. Very specialized. This city is home to the first professional baseball team, established in 1869, with the first professional baseball team in history.
I don't know it.
God, no. This is your hitting zone.
Yeah. Oh, well done. Where? Oh, good Lord. Where did baseball first? Yeah, man, it could be anywhere. Let's just go New York City.
Not New York City. We are in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Oh, I would never have got that. Never.
So to work backwards, the Cincinnati Red Stockings were the first professional baseball team in history.
I didn't know that.
Clue number 2, the Cincinnati Museum Center at Union Terminal is the largest indoor funhouse in the world. And the Cincinnati-based First National Bank, not Bendigo Bank, became the first woman-owned bank in the US in 1878.
Good Lord. That's awesome.
So there's your clues. Hopefully you got that at home. Our guest today is a screenwriter, filmmaker, and a musician, triple threat. He's been married for 26 years. His wife and him have 3 preteen children. He's a movie and music nerd, not surprisingly. He's a screenwriter and filmmaker, and a trivia night MVP, he says. So we might have to dig deeper into that, into the Patreon chat. Cincinnati, let me rewind to that for a moment. Cincinnati is renowned for its striking architecture, including a mix of 19th century buildings and modern structures, and is home to several world-class museums and theaters, as well as home to our guest today from Cincinnati, Ohio, Michael Box. So welcome to the Remembering Them podcast officially. Michael, thank you for joining us all the way over from Cincinnati, Ohio. Freezing cold, as we just mentioned off mic, but thank you very much for taking the time for joining us.
That's right. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you jumping on. And if you'd like to start the podcast, as we always do, with telling us about the person we're talking about today, your relationship to them, obviously, and what happened to them and eventually took them from you.
Yeah. So my mother, Sandra Box, was about 33 years old when she was diagnosed with a rare cancer called neuroendocrine carcinoma. It was one of those things that it hides its identity, I guess, in other diseases. So it gets misdiagnosed a lot. And she was treated for 2 years as a diabetic without them really knowing that her pancreas had been obliterated by cancer. And so when things stopped working as far as the diabetic treatment went, they looked for other reasons for that, and eventually discovered that not only had her uh, pancreas been infected with the cancer, but it had metastasized and moved into her liver, and eventually, after a few years of treatment, eventually it had consumed her kidneys and bladder as well. So it was a long and I imagine painful process. She fought for about 6 years and had a slight remission in that period of time, but and was on some experimental medications to try to put a pause on that, but eventually it was just too much for her. Like I said, she was 33 at the time when she was diagnosed. She died at 39. And this year I'll be 49. So the idea that I've lived with 10 years of bonus time over what my mother had is it's just mind blowing to me. I was the oldest of three sons, and I was about 12 when she was diagnosed. So at 12 years old, I became very uh, uh, responsible for a lot of things that a 12-year-old probably should be responsible for. I, took over responsibilities for cleaning a house and making sure my two brothers were fed and clothed. All the chores were done, stuff like that. My father was there. Don't assume that. But he was a professional firefighter. And here in the States, some cities, their professional firefighting squad, they work 24-hour shifts. So they'll go in at 7 in the morning and they won't get home until the next day, 7 in the morning. And because of that, if they had a long night, a lot of runs, he would come home exhausted and he would need to recuperate. So there were a lot of days where it was me running the house, raising my two brothers. I learned to cook really quickly. I learned to to do chores and such pretty quickly. And it was a tough run for all of us. My youngest brother is 7 years younger than me, so he was 5 when my mother was diagnosed. And then my middle brother was he's about 3 years younger than I am. So he would have been about 9. Yeah, so 12, 9, and 5, and you're 33 years old, and you've just been diagnosed with a terminal illness that they have um, no expectation of you surviving. I can't imagine the weight of that. And my father did his best at the time. As a 12-year-old with all that responsibility, I had a lot of resentment towards my father because at least he got to be away from it, for periods of time. Um, and at the time that drove a lot of anger in me. The dealing with the fact that my mother was going through this, that was foisted on me, that I felt uh, this um, resentment towards my father and a little bit resentment towards my brothers that I had to, take care of them. We had an extended family that did their best, but they were also up to an hour away sometimes. I had grandparents that were close by, and they did a great job of stepping in and doing what they could. Um, but it was a tough run, and you know, having lost her in '95, now this year will be the 30th anniversary of her death. Um, I was thinking about the memories I have of her, and if they are projected fantasies on this myth of who she was that I've created, or if they are factual, rooted in actual story and experiences that actually took place the way that I perceive them. It's hard to know sometimes, especially with this much distance. Uh, but but yeah, she ended up passing in May of '95. I was 18. I was about 2 weeks away from my 19th birthday. I just got home from college for my freshman year in college. Um, and I was home for about a week and a half when she passed away. So, yeah.
Those memories that you have of her, Michael, two questions here. So, how do you remember and describe your mother? And then, secondly, is there a way that you um, fortify or confirm those memories that you have of her in terms of either that's with your dad or with other family
Hmm.
members? I remember mum this way. Is that,
Right,
how you remember that kind of thing?
right. Yeah, it's difficult. I I share a lot with my youngest brother. We're very close. But even then, his perception is skewed through the lens of a child who was going through all of this. Um, you know, 5 to almost 12 when he lost her. So the stories and the concepts of who she was are it's interesting to hear them from his perspective because they're not always the same as mine. Um, my father and I are much closer now than we ever have been. But there's still some distance. Uh, I don't think that he is much of a emotionally um, aware uh, individual. And so a lot of our conversations tend to be surface level. And he's going to be 69 this year, and he's been in some health scares in the past as well. And so for him, I think that it's more of an out of sight, out of mind. Let me kind of take care of the present. He doesn't dwell too much on the stories, and that's sad. I know he has plenty of stories. They were married for 19 years. They were uh, high school. Well, they started dating right after high school. So, they were kids that grew up together. And I enjoy those stories of their dating when they would go, and they lived down the road from each other, actually, when they were younger. So they would, he'd sneak out of the house and go visit her window, and kind of all those things that were rebellious teenage things to do in the 60s and 70s. Um, and I do miss those stories. She would relay those stories. I remember them from her, but he doesn't share too much about that. Um, he did remarry, and I love his wife, my stepmom. She's great. She's been a great support for the rest of my family, and my children know her as their grandmother. They love and adore her, and she's done great to take care of my father, his health needs, and uh, she's been very good with my youngest brother, and raising him, helping to raise him. So it's not a negative situation at all, that he remarried. I know that he needed um, a companion, and he needed somebody that he could lean on and help him, uh, and um, and that's what he found. And she's amazing, and I appreciate her so much. So the thing about the stories about my mom, what I do have. My grandmother, her mother, Ruth, she lived into her 90s, and she was one of the more influential women in my life. She taught me how to cook. She taught me about gardening, and her husband was her second husband, my grandfather. My first grandfather had passed away just before I was born. So she remarried, and her husband, my grandfather, they owned an antique store in a small business district in our hometown. And so I would spend a lot of time there at the antique store helping them with inventory, moving things. I would go to sales and auctions and such with them. And so I got to spend a lot of time with them, listening to her tell stories about my mother. Um, Even while my mother was either at home sick or in treatment, or sometimes she would come along with us, but I remember a lot of the stories I have are from my grandmother sharing those stories with me. Um, so the perspective that you get as you grow, as you age and gain life experience, it changes a little bit about how you feel about those stories. I think it's not as mythical, and it's more, oh, I understand why that would have been difficult, or I understand why those experiences have inter you know have interfered or interacted with their lives in these ways. I understand the distance uh, that some people in the family have from even bringing up those stories, because of the pain associated with them. Uh, so I'm an advocate for therapy. My wife's a mental health therapist, and uh, I think that being emotionally aware has helped me to process a lot of the anger that I had as a child. It's helped me to process a lot of the fear of abandonment that comes with that. Um, I've still dealt with depression and anxiety most of my adult life. I don't think that that was going to escape me from a genetic perspective. It kind of is something that my family tends to have issues with. Um, but when you go through childhood trauma of any kind, there's a good chance that it's going to affect you as an adult. And I think that I've done pretty well. I've channeled it into creative outlets, and I try to be aware of how my interaction with my own feelings impacts those around me, especially my children. And I try to give them the best life lessons that I can to help them not have to compensate for such trauma or pain when they become adults.
Michael, do
So,
you have whether that's from your grandmother or
mhm.
a personal memory of your mum, do you have a favorite story or memory of her?
The Remembering Them podcast is supported by My Legacy Message. How do you want to be remembered? My Legacy Message provides a service that delivers a keepsake video to your loved ones, often as a surprise, after you pass. My Legacy Message. Be remembered.
She was one of those people that did not want to be a burden on anybody. So, she may have been in pain and would kind of push it down a little bit. She had a lot of abdominal pain, as you can imagine. But she also didn't want to have anybody uh, be burdened by uh, her situation. And so she would volunteer to help my grandmother around the house with cleaning chores. A lot of it, I think, was just to be in the presence of my grandmother, and for my grandmother, it was vice versa. They would spend time together. They lived about 20 minutes away. So, um, on days that she was doing well, she would go out to my grandmother's house. I would go with them on occasion. My brothers would come with us, and she would help, dust, vacuum, do dishes, things like that. Um, but she sang, and she wasn't the best singer, I'll admit. But if there was music on, she was singing in the background while she was cleaning, while she was doing chores. And I my father is a big, British and American and even Australian classic rock fan. AC/DC, Led Zeppelin, uh, The Doors, Pink Floyd, The Who. And I was raised on music in that genre. But my mother was a big fan of, the pop music at the time. Genesis, Phil Collins, trying to think of what else she was really into. But those types of that type of music was always playing in my house. We always had music playing, and my love of music. I'm a musician myself, and my love of music has definitely been inspired by hearing music all the time. We didn't eat dinner without music playing in the background. We didn't take a car ride in silence. There was always music, and it's interesting because nobody in my family was musically talented. Uh, I didn't actually start playing guitar until I was in college. So growing up, it was just an appreciation for music as a way of uh, maybe connecting our emotions to a tangible source, something that we could uh, feel, hear, do something with. Um, maybe it was a way of escaping, some of that anger, pain, sadness. Music's such a strong component. I see you have a collection of guitars there, Ryan. I as well. My other room is full of guitars.
I get one room
And
for my stuff, and it's this one.
when I built this studio, I knew I'd be doing some recording professionally with music, but also podcasting. And so I soundproofed it as
Oh,
well as
hell
well
yeah.
as I could. I have mics mounted in the ceiling, and
Oh, so good.
it's one of those things where I knew music was going to be a key element. As a filmmaker and as a musician, it's one of those things that I do take a lot uh, of my inspiration from the time that I spent with my mother. She was a lover of musicals. Uh, she was a lover of romantic comedies, which I'm not, the biggest fan of, but I can find appreciation for. Um, she, I remember watching a lot of older films with her when she was sick. We would just, lay on the couch or even lay in her room and watch movies while she was recovering or in some kind of treatment. Um, and so movies are probably the one area aside from music where I think my mom impacted me the most. Learning to tell a story uh, that was compelling and gripping. I learned that from sitting on the floor watching movies with her. So you know, the 30 years that I've experienced without her, I see glimpses of her impact on my life all the time. Whether it's the way that I interact with my kids. She was very soft as far as her approach. She was very caring and compassionate, and she was she had a big heart for other kids. She volunteered in my school when I was younger, helping with the uh, larger functions that happened at the school, whether it be uh, the lunch day or programs, convocation type things. But she would always be there volunteering for some aspect of helping out, working with the kids. And most of my childhood friends have fond memories of her that I don't even remember. They'll share with me, oh yeah, I remember when your mom helps me with my backpack was stuck, and uh she saw that I was frustrated, so she came over. I didn't even have to ask her. She just asked if she could help, and it was one of those things that just it meant something to them at the time, especially as a young kid. um Things like that. I do hear from former classmates, and it does bring a smile to my face, knowing that she had an impact on the people around me, my friends and close confidants, and um, it's one of those things that, like I said before, you never know how much you're projecting a mythological version of this person onto the memories. And so to have validation of their compassion or their uh, support or encouragement of others, the way that she interacted with others, it's really it's a nice gesture when you can validate those feelings through somebody else's experience. Yeah.
Parker, you mentioned the little things that you remember of her coming out,
Mhm.
whether it be with your kids or the things that you're doing day to day.
Mhm.
What, how do you remember her? Either that's with your kids or with other family members, with your brothers. How do
Mhm.
you remember her legacy today?
We have a large collection of photographs. Back then, you would actually take film photographs, and then you made a point of getting them developed, and oftentimes they'd sit in a box, but they'd be somewhere. Today we take pictures and then we think, oh, that's a great picture, and then you never do anything with it,
And
and
they sit on a computer.
they sit on your computer, or they sit on your phone until you need more room on your phone, and then you start deleting a bunch of stuff. But I do have a large collection of photographs, and every once in a while, one of my daughters or my son will be going through. I'll catch them going through the box of photographs, so they'll ask about my mother. Um, and they don't know her as grandma, and that's fine. They know her as your mom, um, and I'm okay with that. I understand the connection is different, that they don't, that this person's uh, not someone that they have any uh, concrete experience with, and so to them she's as real as uh, anybody else in a story. But they know that that she was my mom, and that she played a integral part. Oh yeah, yeah, birds. We have birds.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
I get a
I
bird, yeah.
love. What is that? Is it a ringtail or
She's
ringneck?
a Quaker parrot.
A Quaker. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. We have budgies and cockatiels.
Oh, nice. I used to have a cockatiel.
And yeah, and
Yeah.
so Frenchie bulldogs upstairs as
Oh,
well. I don't
they're
know if
nice.
you might hear a couple of the
Oh,
floor.
I haven't heard
Unfortunately,
anything yet.
let's say the
No.
floor unfortunately does rumble sometimes.
Zoom, I think Zoom's really good at like editing out other
Oh
noise.
yeah,
Yeah, she
yeah.
sometimes she'll yell and it doesn't even come through. So
Oh wow,
yeah.
wow. Uh,
Sorry.
but no, that's okay. I love animals. So, uh, but yeah, my ADHD gets distracted very easily. um, with my kids, I don't so much as sit down and tell gather around, children. We're going to talk about my mom. Um, but I'll share, oh, this was one of my mom's favorite songs. Or, my mother really loved this movie, and things like that. Um, or even the types of foods that we would eat. We were very, I don't disparage my father at all. He was one single job, raising three sons with a wife who was fighting cancer at in his mid-30s. Um, I I don't disparage him at all. He's a hardworking man, but he was not paid well, and I I grew up not realizing how economically deficient we were, and I talk about the fact that you know I've we with my own kids, I make sure that they understand that we're in a financially uh I don't even know how to explain it. We're in uh, a situation with my wife and I having really good jobs, to be honest, and to be able to have a side career as a filmmaker and musician on top of that. We are very fortunate uh, that we my kids don't know a whole lot of financial hardship that I thought was just normal growing up. Um,
Do you hit them with the old, your kids don't know how good you've got it these days? When I was young, we didn't get these things.
yeah, I've been tempted, but
Just
that
do it. Do it.
yeah, it's one of those things that it's like I want them to realize that they are fortunate and that they've been
Mm.
given opportunities that not everybody gets. We visit my family less often than I would like, but on occasion. And the house I grew up in was 750 square feet. So I don't know if that translates for you, but it was a
Well, mm.
small 2 bedroom, 1 bath home that we lived in until the summer I turned 13. So it was the summer that my mother was diagnosed. My parents actually bought a newer house. They've also found out that after buying a newer house, they found out that she had cancer. And so the financial hardship was even bigger than it had been previously because of that, the new mortgage and whatnot. Um, and what the house did do was it gave us space. It gave us each individual space to make our own and to be creative with. My middle brother Matt, he and I uh, built rooms in the basement of the new house, and so we had our own spaces in the basement. My youngest brother Adam, he was upstairs, and my parents were upstairs. And it was a much larger home, and we felt that it was there was no we didn't realize the financial burden that had also brought onto my parents. They did a great job of shielding us from that, but at the same time, I didn't really learn the lessons of the what to do in a financial situation like that as an adult. And so I grew up with a mindset of if something breaks, you don't pay somebody to fix it. You learn how to fix it yourself. And to this day, that's one of I think that's one of the things that kind of helps define who I am. I'm a problem solver in that way. We had a dryer upstairs, a clothes dryer. The I don't know if this means anything to either of you, but the tension pulley uh, broke on the belt for the dryer. And for most people in our situation, that would have been a sign to replace the dryer. Oh, well, gonna have to replace the dryer. And for me, I was like, no, I'm gonna replace this $20 part and, get another, 4 or 5 years out of this dryer. Even though, financially we could probably just go buy another dryer, I would rather put that money somewhere else. So I always teach my kids lessons of I grew up poor, but I didn't realize I was poor. I grew up thinking that we were problem solvers. And so a part of that was my mother, a part of that was my father. He was very handy. And I definitely took a lot of that from him. She was very astute at figuring out how to afford the things that we needed, the necessities, even if it meant sacrificing on uh, those non-necessity items that you know that most kids might not even consider. Um, I was coming into my teenage years, growing up with a mother that was often very ill, and as a teenager, you want to dress to impress, and you want to have the nice things that everybody else has, and uh, you know the Nike Air Jordan collection had launched about that time, and so I wanted I wanted the shoes that everybody else had. And my mother said, okay, if you want the shoes that everybody else has, you're going to have to pay for them yourself. We would, she would say, well, we would normally pitch in this much towards new shoes in the school year. And that's how much we'll pitch in. And then everything else you'll have to pay for on your own. And so I learned to break leaves and shovel snow and mow yards for my neighbors for you know $10 a yard or whatever at the time, uh, and that's how I spent my summers. Was if I wanted these things, that I learned uh, how to make that happen. and that hard work, dedication to a goal, that was definitely something I took from my mother. Not a throw your hands up in the air and say, it's not fair that I don't get this, or it's not fair that, that I'm in a situation where I can't afford these things. It was, how do I make this happen? And so as a filmmaker, as a musician, I definitely take those life lessons every day. My writing partner, Patrick, is the dreamer. He's a director, and I'm a writer and producer. And so typically his vision starts out here budget wise and I help to bring it back down to something that we can actually work with. And I think a lot of that has to do with my mother's tenacity for making things happen that you can afford and that you can live with. And if you have to do something to raise that money, get creative and do it. With our own film, we've had fundraisers, we've had crowdfunding, we've sold merch, we've sold. We recorded a single that we sold for the movie. The movie's about a rock band that is living in a timeline where all forms of creative expression are being suppressed by kind of an authoritarian system. And so we're writing all the music for the rock band to play in the film. And we recorded a single for that, and we sold some of that online. We gave some away during the fundraiser to anybody who won an auction item. Doing creative marketing has become part of who I am, and a part of that I definitely take from my mother. Even though she wasn't college educated, she wasn't a marketing executive or anything like that. She was just very creative in how to get things done, and I definitely see a lot of that in me. And like I said, being so far removed and 30 years between her death and then the years of my from 12 to 18 of living with her with this illness. My stories aren't specific stories. They're more collections of vignettes. They're collections of snapshots from, oh, I remember laying on the floor while she was running the vacuum, and we were listening to the soundtrack to a movie. And I remember the sun, the warmth of the sun, and the dust coming in on the rays of sunlight. How it caught the sunlight and glinted. And I remember seeing her in the light vacuuming, and like I just have these warm feelings of appreciation and awe and wonder when I think of who she was and how she was dealing with what she was dealing, but she was still teaching us and loving us and caring for us in the way that she could. So her impact on me is it's daily. And it's interesting because most of my adult friends only know her through what I've shared. Most of the friends I had from childhood know who she was as a person, but I'm not as connected to them as I once was. So it's difficult, having that balancing act of reconnecting, of reconnecting the old stories and my present life. You know, um, but I think I do a fair job with it. Um, you know, uh, like I said, I'm a big proponent of therapy. It's been crucial for a lot of people, to get through the grieving process, to get through, how to live a life without this person. And I tell people, it's not so much that you learn to move on, it's that you learn to live with the wound, and that the wound never fully heals. So some days it aches, and some days it is just barely there. But it's always there. Interesting side story. The day that my mother died, I kind of dissociated a little bit, and I went with some friends to go play a game of basketball, pickup game of basketball, and my family were all at the house, and they were, you know, I just needed to get out. There was too much emotion that I wasn't ready to process, and so um, I went and played some basketball with some friends, and I uh, one guy went up to take a shot, and I tried to block his shot, and I jumped up, and he caught me on my hip. I came over him, and I came crashing down onto the asphalt, and I split my eyebrow open, and so I had to go to the hospital to get stitches. And this was the day my mother died, and I didn't have my insurance information, so I had to call my dad from the hospital. And I was like, Dad, I know this is the worst day of your life, but I need you to come to the hospital. Um, and I explained what happened, and he did what any loving father would do. He came to the hospital and helped me with that. But to this day, I have, I don't know if you can see it here, but I have a scar right across my eyebrow from those stitches. And so, in a strange way, every day I have a constant reminder of the day that my mother passed. I see it every day. I acknowledge it. Um, I do wear glasses regularly, so sometimes it's a little bit hidden, but I actually appreciate that I have a physical reminder of some. It's almost like, some people get memorial tattoos, and I do have tattoos, but this is something that, it's different. It's a physical reminder that was unintentional, and it left a a wound that has healed, uh, but it's still there. It's still reminding me, and so, like, what I remind people, that that loss is never fully healed. You don't ever move on. You don't ever get over it. I kind of feel like people uh, dismiss the actual pain of losing someone when they talk about, moving on or getting over that loss. You shouldn't move on or get over it. You've lost a significant person in your life, um, but the wound does close, and it doesn't always hurt the same way it did when it first opened. In fact, it probably never feels that painful again. Um, but it does hurt. It does ache. Sometimes it just feels like a nagging bruise. But sometimes it hurts, and it's okay, to acknowledge that, and to feel that pain. You know, like I said, therapy's a great uh, avenue for a lot of people, and being emotionally aware definitely helps with that. But I kind of joke that if it wasn't for medication and you know, any other form of treatment, I wouldn't be able to blend in with the humans. I wouldn't know how. So I'm a proponent of doing whatever it takes to help you feel like you can maneuver with the pain, with the grief. So medication, therapy, meditation, using a creative outlet, whatever it is that you need to do to get through, to process the pain and channel that energy into something healthy. I'm a big proponent of. Art has obviously been my thing, music and filmmaking, but a lot of people find other avenues, and I champion that. So,
Mark, that's good advice for from you to anyone out there dealing with trying to navigate grief. Also, wonderful advice and lessons passed down to your mum, from your mum to you that you live
yeah.
obviously daily. Last question for the main part of the podcast for you.
Mhm.
In a scenario where, and I granted you were very young, when she was diagnosed and when she passed, but if your mum was in front of you today, what would you say to her?
Oh, wow, that's a tough question. I I don't have any questions for her. I think I would just thank her. I would thank her for um, the life she lived, the love she gave. Um, I would thank her for the lessons that she taught us, um, for being one of the most impactful examples of compassion, endurance, tenacity that I've had in my life. Yeah, I think I would thank her mostly. Yeah.
It's a great answer, and we normally save the hardest question for last for you. So you've done very well. Thank you very much for
I
coming onto the
thank you.
podcast today and sharing stories and lessons and memories of your mum. It was really wonderful hearing about
Thank
her.
you so much. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I hope that anything that I shared can be beneficial to somebody else. And if that's the case, then I am very happy to have been here.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, that was Michael from Cincinnati.
Cincinnati. Yeah, it was great.
Really
Good
cool.
guy.
I
Good guy.
obviously been a long, long time since his mum passed away, and but he was so young. He
Yeah.
was so young, 12 years of
Ah.
age, having to look after two younger brothers. I know what that punishes like, but not. But fortunately, I had mum around to
But
help
yeah,
me.
yeah,
Yeah,
he had your mum to actually help
yeah,
chip in on that one.
exactly.
Oh man, I actually forgot to ask him. Damn it, that's the thing when the Patreon. I have an idea early and then I forget by the end. Um, when I lost Paul, the
Mm,
guy Paul looked really old for his age, like in his
hmm
20s. Well, he was 21, but he looked like he was 30, maybe more. And I was going to ask him at what point did he feel like he now was older than his mum?
yeah.
You
That's
know.
true. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
anyway,
Because she was in her 30s, and
yeah.
I think I think he said he was 10 years
Yeah,
past what
he's
she
like
would have.
40,
Yeah,
late 40s.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That would have been a really
Mm.
cool question. Damn
Yeah,
it,
would
get him
have been
back
a
on.
good one, but
Yeah.
can we get him back? Yeah.
No, it was a great chat. We
Oh,
appreciate Michael jumping on and um, being vulnerable and sharing those stories and memories that he can remember.
yeah.
And yeah, I think it's quite obvious that a lot of those lessons and things that he remembers, whether consciously or subconsciously, are coming through in his day to day,
Yeah.
whether
Oh,
work or
totally.
family
Yeah.
life. Everything that he does today. So it's really cool to hear
Yeah.
about that.
Awesome.
Really cool Patreon chat as well. And that's a nice little segue to remind our listeners to jump onto our Patreon, which is all the links will be in our show notes. And you can also search Remembering
Mm.
Them podcast on Patreon. A way to support us, what you get for that is you get the exclusive content, access to exclusive content. So we had a brief chat with Michael. I won't give away what we did in that chat, but it was a lot of fun. It
Sucked.
was a lot of fun. Playing into his something that he loves doing. So yeah, jump onto the Patreon. If not for that exclusive chat, just a way to support the podcast as well, to make sure that we can keep sharing these stories and memories for all these wonderful guests that we have on. Speaking of our wonderful guests, jump on and give us a rating and review on your preferred podcast platform. 5 stars ideally, so we can show up on platforms where people are looking for some sort of podcast dealing with grief. Remember to share if you enjoyed this episode as well. Share it. We'll obviously release it on all of our socials. Follow us on there. But you can share this episode with Michael if you enjoyed it, and all of our previous episodes, of course, to someone that may be in need. There were some great lessons and bits of advice that Michael shared in there. So no doubt this will be a great episode to share with someone. And also the My Legacy message service. Just remember that's there. Michael mentioned in his episode around being able to share pictures with his kids and tell stories around that. The My Legacy message service, for those that know, is about video messages that you can save, restore it, and share it with your loved ones after you've passed. And it goes without saying, I'm sure Michael would love given his work in the movie space, that he would love a video message from his mum.
He'd be disappointed with the production, though.
It'd be a little bit different back then. Yeah. Ours is slightly better.
This isn't edited at all. This is one camera.
But thank you, Ryan, for jumping on. That was a really great episode, and looking forward to the next one.
Okay, mate. See you then.
Mate.
Much love. Bye.
The Remembering Them podcast is created for entertainment purposes. Mark and Ryan are not licensed mental health professionals. If you would like to discuss your mental well-being, several free resources are available in Australia. Information about these services is available in the podcast notes. Please take the time to contact a loved one today and tell them how much you appreciate and love them.